All right, so we have some very juicy Royale High Twitter community drama to go over today, and it has to do with a thread that was published by a user in the community that Royale High ended up seeing and did not like, and this person ended up apologizing. It was a whole thing, so we're gonna get straight into it. Now, for some very quick background context, basically, this was a thread posted by somebody who is part of the Royale High Twitter community, which is like a group of people. And basically, this is a response to their thoughts on Royale High's current farming methods, which there was a whole thread where people are asking about how does the XP work, how does farming work, because for a while now, people have been speculating that the diamond farming methods have been heavily nerfed, or they're just not as good as they used to be, right? And because of that, Royale High was kind of, answering some questions in comment sections, and this person took a snippet of the comment section and made a very, very long Twitter thread about it and how they think Royale High is allegedly, quote, gaslighting users and being, quote, shady. So we're going to talk about it because Royale High saw this tweet because it got 14,000 views, didn't like it, clocked it, and then this person ended up apologizing, but it's not really an apology, so we're going to get into all that. But before we do, I do have to give a disclaimer. This was posted publicly. If you post something publicly, there is no expectation of privacy. That is how the internet works. However, I do, of course, always blur usernames because I don't need people getting harassed for having an opinion or for sharing something. I don't think that fixes the problem. So usernames are blurred for a specific reason because I don't need people getting harassed. That is why. However, if people decide to comment, that is their choice, and I don't control what happens from there. So with that in mind, let's get straight into it. So this was posted yesterday afternoon and it already has 14,000 views. So it's gotten a lot of views. And the original poster writes, I honestly find it kind of shady how Royale High team is trying to essentially gaslight us in terms of farming. Sure, you still make 300 every level up, but you deliberately increased how long it takes to level up. That is a diamond nerf. Explanation thread #RHTC, which if you don't know what that means, it means Royale High Twitter community, which, hey guys, they don't like me, but let's keep it going. And they attach a screenshot of basically the thread that I mentioned earlier where Royale High was answering questions about farming. And the screenshot reads, it literally does not give the same though. Campus 2, when you get 1,800 for leveling up, gave you 3,600 for one day with multipliers. Campus 2 gives you 2,300 to 2,600 for one day. It quite literally does not get the same anymore. And Royale High responded and said, it gives you the same amount of diamonds per level up for XP. The amount of XP you can earn for certain quests has changed, not the diamond to level ratio. So important to note here, although the XP has changed, according to Royale High, you still get the same amount of diamonds per level. Now, they go on to say 1 XP equals 1 diamond, 300 XP is a full level. If you nerf XP, you nerf diamonds. There's no workaround. XP isn't its own currency, it's directly and immediately converted to diamonds. Which, I'm sure Royale High economists will be all up in the comments, which please educate me. I am curious. But this makes sense to me, right? If you get a certain amount of diamonds per leveling up, you can, in theory, derive that a certain amount of XP is equal to a certain amount of diamonds, Now, in the secondary screenshot that I have, they go on to say, let's say you work at a store. The owner offers you $10 an hour, then, 1 week, he changes it to $10 every 2 hours. That is a decrease in your pay. Even if the base amount is the same, the rate at which you make that amount got longer. Math tells us that if you go from $10 an hour to $10 every 2 hours, that means your pay rate was reduced to $5 an hour. The same is with XP and diamonds. Homework in Campus 2 gives me 200-ish diamonds with multipliers for each one, and in Campus 4, only 66 diamonds. This combined with nerfing quests XP gain not once but twice, you are actually making less diamonds for activities even though they take you just as long. This combined with the insane inflation of Royale High is why people quit. It feels impossible. Which I have to say, so far this doesn't seem that rude to me. There's been some comments being like, oh, this is rude. This seems pretty tame to me, and it seems like they're kind of spitting facts. They go on to say also the new marching band set is 133,000 diamonds. It was released on the 19th and was originally going to be on sale for less than 2 weeks. This means that a player without game passes would have to level up 443 levels to buy it. Yes, it was extended, but it goes to show how. And they go on to say, goes to show how. And there's like a screenshot. I guess they didn't say anything else there. But the screenshot that they attached, I'm going to try and read it. The text a little bit small. There you go, I zoomed it in. This person writes, will it be available to the end of January or February since the set is coming out so late in December? And then Royale High responded, only until December 31st. Lock in. This person responds, hey, Royale High, I love you guys so dearly, and I'm really grateful for the communication we've been given. But even with the free diamonds in the chest, which we are all super grateful for, thank you, this seems a little bit difficult for the average player. A lot of us are really busy with ... And Royale responds to that creator and says, thank you for sharing your perspective. That's definitely valid. This time of year is busy for a lot of people. I hope that doesn't come across as passive aggressive at all, but the set will still be available next year. So if you if you try it on and really love it but can't, blah blah blah, and they say a little bit more. This is where they continue. So many decisions are made without players in mind. If this was 2024 when the dev team isolated us, we wouldn't have been able to even ask for an extension. Just like the Falling Leaves debut, the time-gated one lasted 2 weeks. It has introduced the steampunk set and ended 2 weeks later. We had almost no time at all to farm for them, especially due to having to AFK in Campus 4 Alpha before it opened up. Funnily enough, they were quick to end Falling Leaves ASAP, but then the winter update that year was delayed, so it just begs the question, and they go on to say, begs question of why things have been like this for the community. This Glitterfrost has been amazing, but I really hope the dev team remove the nerfs and let players actually roleplay. Roleplay is dying not because we don't want to, but because we can't. We have to focus on getting diamonds, because if not, things aren't feasible. Which, you know, to be fair, I don't play Royale High as much as I used to. So I have more perspective, I guess, from back in the day, back in the olden days in Royale High. But I can understand how it'd be annoying if you're just trying to roleplay and play stuff and you feel like it's impossible to get diamonds. And, you know, I speculated this before, but in my personal opinion, I feel like the inflation of Royale High and the alleged stuff going on with the leveling and diamonds and it becoming allegedly a little bit challenging to get diamonds, I think really does incentivize players to purchase diamonds. And what's interesting is I was actually going to make a video about Royale High inflation, and as I was doing research, I actually noticed that the prices for diamonds, like if you're purchasing them in the Royale High shop, has actually changed. So you get more diamonds for the same amount of Robux, which I think is good because it reflects that Royale High understands that like inflation is a thing. I've seen a lot of people saying that the prices haven't changed. They have. So you get more diamonds for the same price now, which is important to note. But regardless, I definitely understand this is frustrating. Now, this person goes on to say, when I joined in 2017, you had a pre-made dorm, which, side note, this isn't just some random person complaining. This is like an OG. Okay? So this person, I feel like they really know what they're talking about, which, like, to be fair, I'm not fact checking all the numbers they're putting out here. I'm not like a mathematician. I'm not sitting here doing mental math. Mental math is in my rearview mirror. Never again. No more multiplication tables for me. But regardless, I'm just kind of going off the math that they're saying. But based on what they're saying, the way they're saying it, this sounds pretty, you know, common understanding to me. This sounds pretty accurate. But regardless, when I joined 2017, you had a pre-made dorm, only 3K for an upgraded bed. Now, new players don't even get a bed. They have to level up 5 times just for a mattress on the floor. By then, new players quit because they can't even sleep, which I have to say, which I think this is common knowledge, but I have my childhood account, which I want to attach that to my YouTube because that's where I have like all my childhood friends on it. Like it's like a OG, a very old account. And this new account, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to go ahead and play Royale High on my YouTube account. And literally, I could not afford a bed. My dorm room was just so empty and barren. So on my OG account, I have all these halos and I'm super rich. But on this account, I'm like, why can I not afford a mattress? Is there maybe like a sleeping bag I can get? Like what's going on here? And I couldn't do some of the tasks because I had to sleep and it wasn't letting me buy it. And then the UI was like clipping, which again, Royale High people clip this and be like, oh my God, guys, she's so hateful. No, sharing my personal, you know, experience does not mean I'm being hateful. It means I'm spitting facts based on what I experienced, okay? Relax. But they attach a screenshot and they say, don't want a sad mattress on the bare floor? Well, you have to buy the bed frame, bedboard, pillows, blanket, and mattress all separately. Going the absolute cheapest route is it's 10K for a bed that's 33 levels to get your first kind of cheap looking bed. Which I understand the frustration with stuff costing that much. I certainly don't think it should. However, I do think the increase in the amount of items like the bed frame and the bedboard and pillows and stuff like that does add to like the customization and how much Royale High's put effort into being able to customize dorms. So I don't have an issue with there being, you know, lots of different things you can buy for your bed, but more so I guess just the pricing to just have a bed. The mattress itself is what I think is valid here. I don't really care about, okay, I can't have a bed frame. Whatever, at least I can sleep. You know what I mean? Then they go on to say, they have like part of the screenshot and they say, the fact that you don't even get a few free things to start out is just insane to me. So many things that give you diamonds also cost diamonds. Brushing your teeth, it costs diamonds. Sleeping costs diamonds. Eating used to cost diamonds. You have to pay diamonds to make diamonds. That's kind of funny. Send the soft devs, please make new accounts and actually try and play the player experience of Royale High. The best way to success as a game, I think they mean succeed as a game developer, is to be a player of your own game. Finding bugs, fixing imbalances, etc. will all be easier if you just play the game every now and then to see how to get your players back. Which, I don't think that's an outrageous thing to say. Maybe I'm being out there, I don't know. But yeah, you know, if you want to understand the player experience, like a core thing of marketing and a core thing of, you know, game development, stuff like that, and community relations and customer retention is understanding consumer path. So understanding what people are doing when they join the game, where do they go? Do they do the daily spin? Do they go to their dorms? And how can you make it easier for somebody? And personally, as somebody who came back on this YouTube account to try and play Royale High, again, the UI was buggy. It was very confusing. I couldn't understand where to go. I think it'd be really helpful to have a tutorial for people who are maybe starting. And I understand like wanting free things, but I feel like people would abuse that. Like if you know, from like Murder Mystery 2 or Adopt Me, there's so many bots. And so I can't imagine how many bots would play Royale High just to get like starter diamonds or whatever, and then go ahead and trade it to their main account or do something with it that would basically ruin the economy in Royale High. So I don't necessarily believe in free stuff per se, but even just like a tutorial that helps you figure out what to do and guides you on how to do things, I think would definitely be very, very helpful at like, you know, steering players in the right direction. Because at the end of the day, it's meant to be like an open kind of concept world where you can do what you want, which I love. But the thing is, like when you're a new player and there's so many things, like there's so much to Royale High, and especially when I joined back and there was like Cloud Cash, I'm like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like having that sort of guidance, someone to lend you a helping hand to help you discover ways to make diamonds and help you understand how to play the game, I think would really help. And part of making that would be to play the game and understand new user experience to then implement things like that. So personally, I don't think this is that outrageous. I'm gonna be honest. I think it's a pretty well worded statement. Now, Royale High responded and said, "You didn't read the full conversation, so I can help you. Or maybe you just left it out." Oh. I was like, oh. If you have constructive feedback, I'm happy to pass it along to the developers, but accusations are not productive. Which, okay. They go on to say, we're also part of the social media team and we share the information we're given. For clarity, each level requires 325 XP and it always has. The team focused on finishing Glitterfrost and it's a holiday week, so we aren't operating at full power. Thank you for your patience. And they attached this screenshot, which reads, I don't know if it's some other person, and they wrote, "This isn't like negative or trying to be mean about it, but it feels like the XP to Diamond thing was only worked on in Campus 4 and doesn't work with other older realms like Campus 2, 3. Since Campus 4 is no longer priority, I really am happy you guys are planning to touch up on farming." And Royale High response said, "Oh no, I didn't find what you said mean at all. I forwarded your concern to the devs with the information you provided." This person says, "Thank you so much. It has been a struggle with Campus 2, being the least laggy campus with my old 2019 phone could handle, so it was kind of upsetting." So I guess this was like, to my understanding, this original poster's comment, from what I can gather, and Royale High responded to them. It was like being thoughtful and said, okay, we gave them feedback, and they said thanks. So, okay, but they're still allowed to post a thread. You know what I mean? And the original poster responds, "Thank you for taking the time to respond. However, my post is constructive feedback. The only accusation I can assume you're referring to is the gaslight part, which is not hatred in any way. I simply find it in poor taste to tell people that there has been no diamond nerf." And then Royale High responds and says, "The accusation of gaslighting, as well as calling us shady, was definitely off-putting. It would be more constructive to focus on criticism on the game itself rather than us as individuals, especially when continuing to frame our responses as being in poor taste." Now, let me scroll back up to the top really quick. There's a lot more to go over, but let me scroll back up to the top. And this is what this person said. "I honestly find it kind of shady how Royale High team is trying to essentially gaslight us in terms of farming." That's it. Let's emphasize the key words here. I honestly, they're saying basically, in my opinion, I find it a little bit shady. They're not saying, Royale High team, you are shady. That's not what they said. They said, I just find it a little bit shady. It's like saying, I find that to be a little bit dishonest. It's not saying that you're a criminal. It's not an accusation. They're just sharing that they think it's a little bit shady. I don't quite understand why it was interpreted as an accusation, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like something was misread or something was taken out of context because I don't feel like their response is warranted in this situation. Again, I find it kind of shady. That's just their opinion. They're allowed to have an opinion. Are we policing opinions? Like, this is kind of weird. And then they want to say, is trying to essentially gaslight us. Again, they said, I honestly find it kind of shady how Royale High in the team is trying to essentially gaslight us. They feel like they're being gaslit. They're not saying here, to be fair, they could have said, I feel like they're trying to gaslight us. They could have said that, right? That would have made it a little bit clearer, because you don't want to present something as fact. But at the end of the day, this is obviously somebody's opinion. And I can understand how maybe the Royale High team would feel angered maybe by this post because they specify Royale High team. If they would have just said Royale High, then it's more so directed towards the game. But I don't think this is really an accusation. I don't know. maybe I'm misinterpreting it. You guys can let me know. But this doesn't come across to me like they're saying, Royale High, you're so shady and you're dishonest and you're this and you're that. It comes across as someone who says, I just think this is a little bit funny. This is a little bit weird. Why is this happening? And I don't think there's any issue with sharing that. Obviously, you have to use protective language, especially if you're publishing things. But I do think that was kind of a bizarre response. I don't know. Is in poor taste, and they say, I apologize if it was offensive. That was not my intention. Which, if it was offensive, I think it's funny, because it's like, I think you can still tell here that they don't think what they said was offensive, which personally, I don't think so either. That's just my take on it, though. And they're being really professional. Like, when they respond to Royale High, they're like, yeah, sorry, my bad. Royale High responds and says, I appreciate that. Let's focus on what we can do moving forward. In what ways would you like to see Royale High improve farming? Please keep in mind that there are many mini-quests that contribute to XP changes. We understand some players are not enjoying the current state of farming. Neil and I have taken notes and are actively working with the team on this feedback. As I mentioned, the team was highly motivated to make Glitterfrost special, and a great deal of effort went into that event. We're hopeful and committed to making improvements in 2026. This is very professional of Royale High. Great response. They respond, I think 300 diamonds per level for new players is very disheartening with how much things have changed since the start of the game. In my opinion, I think 2 to 2.5k or something along that area is better. The game passes are roughly 25 USD, but grinding without them feels pointless at times. And Royale says, okay, we can pass that along to the dev team. And then that was the end of the thread that I took screenshots of. There is more to it. There's some other people commenting, but that's the gist of it. And I do have to say, I think Royale High's responses here are good. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is just my take on it, and that's why I thought this would be an interesting video to make, is that I feel kind of like this is kind of the policing that we've seen in the past, which I'm not trying to dogpile Royale High or dogpile the community manager, because I think, to be fair, this community manager has been phenomenal. But in my opinion, I think it's a little bit, I don't know, just bizarre, because there was a whole thing with Call Me Haley where she was basically getting in trouble for sharing her opinions. She was kicked out of the program, then brought back, and all this stuff. Like, it was a whole big thing, right? We know about that. And then in a recent video, I talked about how they're reopening their badge applications, and they said that creators with opinions are eligible for the program, which is like, great, awesome. You know, Royale High creators don't always have to say nice things about the game. They can be critical, and I think that's really important. And then here, someone's being kind of critical, and they immediately get almost a sort of defensiveness, which again, I can understand public image is very important, but it didn't feel like they were accusing you of directly being dishonest. It was more so, they could have worded it better, absolutely, to clarify. They could have said, this is just my opinion. They could have said that. They could have been very clear about that, which I don't think would have hurt. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like it was as bad as they were portraying it to be, where it was like, oh, they were like accusing you of being, or making these accusations, because that's not how I as a reader interpreted it. Maybe somebody else interpreted it that way. Maybe people in the comments think that. I have no idea. But I really don't think that either person in the situation is really at fault. You know, at the core of it, the original poster is entitled to their opinion. They're entitled to share how they feel. They're entitled to say, yeah, I feel kind of gaslit right now. I feel like this is a little bit shady. They're allowed to say that. That is their right as someone on a public social media platform, right? That's what Twitter's for. To be honest, to be able to share thoughts. That's why you can't delete comments. You know what I mean? And so it is a little bit bizarre to me that it feels like almost a kind of, I don't know, borderline policing, where it's like, oh, you're accusing us of stuff. We don't appreciate that. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. But it just doesn't seem like a super accusatory to me. It'd be different. They're like, oh my God, Royale High is actively scamming people, or they said something like that. That'd be different. But that's not what they said. You know what I mean? And then Royale High's response, at first it was a little bit passive aggressive. I kind of clocked it and I was like, oh, spicy. But then the rest of their responses were really professional. So I don't know. I think obviously farming is a pretty contentious issue for a lot of people in Royale High, because there's been so many, you know, just complaints regarding how many diamonds you get. And I understand that Royale High has to balance, you know, profitability with player engagement. And they have to make a game where players feel like they're achieving something to kind of fuel that serotonin-filled system of just loop of playing the game and being happy and feeling like you achieved something. And I understand that. But at the same time, if players feel like they can't make any progress, they're going to quit. But if you give them too much startup diamonds, then people are going to make spam accounts to artificially farm and skew values, and that's just gonna return Royale High to the same place where it's just completely, you know, the system's ruined. So I'm not trying to be hypercritical or rude or anything like that. I definitely do think the situation, I don't necessarily feel like it warranted a response from Royale High per se. I understand, I guess, because it got 14,000 views, people were quick to respond, but regardless, I think everybody's entitled to their opinions. People are allowed to share their opinions, especially on a social media platform like Twitter. Obviously, you can't be making baseless allegations, but in my personal opinion, I don't feel like this creator was sharing allegations. They are more so sharing, in my opinion, a very well-worded statement and just thread about their thoughts and criticisms, and I think that it was a valid criticism to have. So Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about this? What do you think would be a good amount of diamonds per leveling in Royale High? Again, I think 2,500 is quite a bit, especially for people who can just make like spam accounts and farm. But at the same time, 300 definitely, in my opinion, is not enough. So let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!